Stay tuned to the Ask Dr. Ross podcast. It's created to give you info to succeed at college. Our hosts are highly qualified. Dr. Catherine Ross is a member of the University of Texas System's Academy of Distinguished Teachers. She's also a popular professor of 19th century English literature. Co-host and multimedia editor Nathan Witt provides a student perspective. Ask Dr. Ross is a community service of the University of Texas at Tyler.
Hello, I'm Catherine Ross. This is a podcast for families and students, those who are in college, those who are thinking about going to college, and even older adults who might think about going back to university. We're real interested in hearing about your experiences, and we want to try to answer as many of your questions as we can.
If you would like to ask Dr. Ross a question, email her at adrquestions@gmail.com. Today, we will answer a question that so many parents have: what can I do to help my children get into college? So, Dr. Ross, what can you tell parents about getting their children into college?
Well, the first thing I want you to think about doing is being really as involved as you can be as early as possible. One of the people we talked to about this is Chino Valle, and he and his wife successfully launched 2 daughters at UT Austin recently, and he's got some great advice.
If you don't raise your kids, somebody else will, and it might not be the way you want it to. So I think being there for our kids, going to the games, going to the meets, going to the PTA meetings, being involved. The word is involvement. Being involved with your kids young, not late when they're trying to get a scholarship. You know, when you're in high school, be part of the school, be part of the people they hang around with, socialize with the parents. Not all the parents are going to say the stuff you want them to want to hear, but at least you got an idea of how the kids are being raised. Is it the right way to be raised or not, you know?
Another one of the folks we interviewed was Bailey Allegretto. She's a nurse and has 4 young children and is aware that you need to start thinking about what your kids' talents and interests are early on. Here's some of the things that she told us.
We know a lot of people who have not gone to college, who have gone on to be entrepreneurs or have really successful careers. And so I think we'll just take it a child-by-child basis and just, try to hone in on their interests and not just really approach it with a one-size-fits-all attitude.
Here's a clip from Scott Dillingham. He's the director of the Office of Digital Learning at UT Tyler.
I think I would say to parents, and the more kids you have, the harder this is to do. But, if you're interested in running, then you have to run every day. You got to run on the days that are hard to run, the days you like to run. You got to vary your workouts. If you like to write, you got to write every day. You got to write the days that are easy, the days you don't want to. You got to vary your writing. And as a parent, it's hard for me to keep up with high school homework, and I have one. I don't know how anybody else does it. And I feel disengaged there. But if there's something he's interested in, I can do that, right? Like, okay, well, we can write a little bit. I can do that too. And, we can read a little bit. I can read too, and you can read, and I can read, and you can run, and I'll run with you. And there's plenty of ways to tangentially maybe be involved.
I really love that. I think that maybe from a student's perspective is that launching off to college, going into, quote unquote, the real world, it's scary. And so I think your parents being involved kind of helps you build trust in them that they've got your back through this and kind of helps you have that confidence into launching to the next phase of your life is, hey, they've had me all the way through here. They're going to have me in this next phase.
Well, and the other thing, Nathan, that I think about all this is that when youngsters do get to college, so many of them are surprised by what they experience. And even though you and I are doing this podcast to try to help them not be so surprised, they usually are. Yeah. And if their parents have helped them get up to that point, I think it helps to give them a kind of a level foundation to build from so that when they start to get into the nitty-gritty of what college is all about, they've at least got this sense that it's important, it's going to take them somewhere, and their parents are on their team. Another thing parents should think about is starting early, even as early as middle school. This is when kids start to grow their interests, their talents, their intellectual kinds of abilities. Yeah. And you need to be sure that you've already started them thinking about college. Our friend Chino told us a lot about that.
I think it doesn't start when they get out of high school. It starts way before that for parents who have kids that are younger. I think, it's not everybody has fathers and mothers. I understand that. Not everybody have the same are raised the same way, but just being supportive, not when they're going to college, but at least try to do it when they go to middle school. I think that's where it starts. Open the doors for them. Let them experience stuff. If they don't want to play sports, or if you don't want to play sports, let them fall on their behind and say, okay, this might not be for you. Don't close those doors for your kids young, because that you're doing the worst thing you could do for your kid, because then they find other ways.
I've also talked to Catherine Martinez. She is the scholarship coordinator at the East Texas Communities Foundation. Catherine told me,
start looking for scholarships. Don't wait until your senior year of high school. Start looking during your junior year and kind of figuring out, hey, would I be able to apply to this? Would I be a good candidate for this? And you can look at the people that have won them in the past and see if you have anything in common with that person.
well, a couple things I'd like to add, I guess, to these conversations here is that I hope parents will try to avoid labeling or stigmatizing their youngsters as early as 7th or 8th or 9th grade, saying, oh, I'm not a math person, or I don't like poetry, or I don't like to read.
Yeah.
Because they really, when taught well, they can do anything.
Yeah.
And I really want folks to understand that one of the great things about getting off to college is that if you've invited your youngsters to try a lot of things already, then that arena gets even larger in college. They have so many more things to think about. And if they've already started kind of narrowing their perspective and saying, oh, well, I can't do math, or I can't do literature, or I can't get a job being a painter, then you've probably cut off something that might be really important to them.
Yeah, and I love the don't stigmatize so early on. So one of my best friends, his name is Peyton, and we make music together. And his entire life, he said that he's bad at math. He told himself, convinced himself that he's not smart, right? Well, when we started making music together, he got really into the production side of it. And he's insanely talented, the best I've ever met in the 5 years I've made music. And I sat down with him one day, and I was like, dude, when you look at what he does, it's quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. It's fractions, it's math, it's complex math too. And
well, and the other thing too is a lot of young people are just late bloomers.
yeah,
They won't know what they're really good at until somebody like you, Nathan, gets them involved in doing a project, and they discover areas of interest and creativity that they didn't know about. One of the things I read a long time ago, which kind of chilled me a little bit, but I think it's probably something worth thinking about and maybe reporting here, is that according to the scientists, the most successful children are oftentimes, or the happiest children are the ones who fit exactly into what their parents were hoping for.
yeah.
If you can allow a child to blossom the way they were born to be, rather than to try to force them into any kind of cultural or long-term sort of a plan that you have as an adult. Don't live your life through your children. Let them live their lives.
Yeah.
So parents have to be sure they're paying attention to what their students are learning, how carefully they're preparing for classes, and that they're getting good study habits. But it's important that you don't overstress grades too much so that kids start to get really stressed out about it. Here's what Chino did.
We put him in Boulter Middle School, and that was 7th and 8th grade year. And I said, y'all play sports, but I would like for y'all to have nothing but A's. So they thought, piece of cake. So when they got to Boulter, they were always in the top 2 or 3 of their class for middle school, So that was pretty cool. They always got A's, never have to worry about it. When they got to high school, I said, this still goes. Y'all want to play sports? Y'all don't want to go to a different school. This is where y'all want to be at. Y'all still need to get A's. And the coaches used to, they say, you drive us nuts, but at the same time, we appreciate you because there's not that many parents that do this. Through high school, they got a B in the middle of the season in volleyball in the freshman year. Both of them did. And they had to sit out for like 2 weeks, I believe it was. I said, y'all going to dress up. Y'all going to go to the games. But y'all will not play until y'all get that A. And I think that was the best decisions as a parent. Smarter kids are going to attack a scholarship or try to get a scholarship than the ones that are not as smart.
Yeah, I love that quote there at the end. He kind of butchers it, but what he was saying was smart kids are not going to attack a scholarship any harder than someone who maybe isn't performing as well in school. And I think that's really interesting. I think it's something that I saw all my friends were top 10 students in high school, and we had a lot of them who kind of felt like they were at the finish line maybe, and so didn't attack scholarships probably as hard as they used to.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly one of the things that we want parents to guard against is youngsters towards their junior and senior year, they start to burn out.
Yeah, senioritis.
Senioritis
Yeah,
is awful. And we want them to be fresh and excited when they start college. But
Sure.
I guess the other thing I was thinking about, too, is that you don't want them to be overburdened with pressure. It's very confusing today who gets into colleges and why, who gets scholarships and why. And they need to be sure that you're building their sort of self-confidence along the way, their intellectual self-confidence. I think it's a really important thing, Nathan.
Yeah.
Another thing parents can do is to provide your students with a lot of different experiences. I don't know if you got to do this when you were a kid, Nathan, but parents can open doors for kids. They can take you to a zoo, or they can take you to visit a college campus, maybe a hospital or a factory, to see how different people in different jobs work and live and experience those places. Go to museums, local places of interest, parks. If you can, travel.
These kinds of experiences will teach your students unexpectedly valuable lessons, as Scott is about to tell us in some of his travels and some of his son's sports experiences.
We took a trip a few years ago and ended up on the wrong train because of some confusion going from France to Germany, and it was a lot of fun. Anyway, so you have some of those things crop up in life, right? And so I think that's where, just openness begins. And then we just encourage him to, try difficult things. He's a soccer referee, which is not that, there's plenty of referees, right? But, as soon as he was old enough, we were like, hey, what do you think about, he tries it out. And that's been really rewarding. And that's kind of led to some other opportunities around town to do some things that I didn't have, those opportunities to do. And, obviously, your parents being able to go drop you off to do something before you can drive, all that stuff matters. One of his goals this year was to hit a certain time running the mile. He wants to be a miler. He's had a lot of success this year. So he didn't get his time. And so we're looking kind of at the last minute at a little distance festival down in Austin, and we signed up for that. And then, that's not, timing-wise, it's not going to work. So it's a guy that actually works here at the university said, well, I got another guy that's going to come up to just a middle school track here in Tyler. We're going to give it a shot. Why don't you come time trial? So you think, great. And if I was writing the script, he would have nailed the time, because that's what you want for the people that you support. You want them to be, in your mind, a definition of success, right? And so so we get there, and the other guy's a little older. He actually used to run here, and so he was time trialing, and so he doesn't make it, and Solomon doesn't make it, and they don't make it by a lot. Like, it's not close, and so it's this sort of this horrible disappointment. But with that, RJ's there, able to kind of talk both of them through it. And so what we end up with is this beautiful experience, right? And so the other guy, he was so great, because he's not happy either, but he's standing there at 25 years old, and then here's a 15-year-old, right? So he's did a great job. He's trying to be a good role model. But it was this opportunity to see another guy who's been really, really, really successful fail, and then this failure where you've got your coach there able to tell you and walk you through it. None of those things could I provide, right? Could Sarah provide? You know what I mean? And so it ended up being this beautiful learning situation that is what you really want for all of your experiences, but especially high school, and then in my mind, college.
So my uncle has lived a life very similar to me. So he got into a little bit of trouble in high school and kind of turned his life around, and now has had a career that I would really love to have the opportunity to have. And I sat down with him coming right out of high school and asked him for advice. And he gave me one piece of advice, 2 words. He said, pursue failure. And he said, really sit with that word, pursue. That's where you grow. That's where you learn. That's where you develop is in pursuing failure. And you'll be surprised how many times you pursue failure and find success. That was huge for me.
Yeah. I as a classroom professor, I always am saying the same thing to students. If you do poorly on a test or a quiz, follow up and figure out, what did you do wrong?
Yeah.
How did you do that? Let's not do it again. In fact, I even require them to follow up a failure with a sorting out of what caused it.
Yeah.
The thing is that a few failures are not going to hurt you either.
Yeah.
The failure grades are sometimes the ones where you end up with the most growth.
Yeah, you will be surprised about how much you can recover from.
Absolutely.
Like I've learned that,
Absolutely.
wow, you can bounce back from absolutely so much.
And of course, going to sports and music events is always a good thing to do. While you're doing that, however, pay attention to what sparks your students' interest. Your youngsters are going to start to develop interest in ideas and possibly their skills when they're in junior high, middle school, high school. But they probably won't finish developing those till they get into college. But if you can start them thinking about it early on, that'll be good. Catherine Martinez talks about this, how she paid attention to her youngsters' individual talents and interests.
Okay.
My younger son, he wants to go into graphic design, digital stuff. He has a YouTube channel. So, I mean, he has a pretty clear-cut idea of what he wants to do.
Channel.
Yes. So this summer, he made some videos, threw them out there. One of them went viral. And he has a YouTube channel and is making money. Like, we had to open a checking account so he could get his money from YouTube. In my former life, before I was a parent, I worked for a company in Dallas called Ames Aptitude Testing, and we tested your aptitudes and just told you what your natural inherent abilities were. And it's crazy tests that it takes about a day to do all of the testing, and then another half day where you go over your results. Kids would come in and they would do the testing and they would say, you know, I'm going to be a doctor. My dad was a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor, and I'm going to be a doctor. And during the conference, they would say, you know, we're not going to tell you you can't be a doctor. We're just going to tell you that it's going to be very hard for you. It's not going to come naturally. You have the aptitudes for engineering or for, you know, something else. And so they would leave disgruntled and they would go back to school and I'm going to be a doctor. And then they'd call back in about 2 years and say, okay, you told me I shouldn't be a doctor, but I didn't believe you. But now I believe you. So can I come back in and let's talk again about what I need to do? And so it was really interesting. The things, you know, they usually hit it dead on. And one thing, like, they did a whole bunch of musical aptitudes, and dentists need to have a high timbre aptitude so they can hear the difference in drills, which you would never think about. But so it's just little things like that. And hopefully I'll be taking my son this summer to go and get tested so that can kind of help us determine, you know, which area we should go into. I think Catherine Martinez has brought up something really important, which is thinking you want to do something because you've seen it on TV or your family wants you to do it.
Yeah.
And wanting to do something because it really fills your soul. It's really something you love to do, and it matters to you.
And it fits you.
And it fits you, yeah. And so that's what I like about American universities is that they offer you a wide variety of courses that you have to take to get started in the core curriculum.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, a student come into my English class and they go, oh, I hate poetry. And they finish going, oh, my God, poetry is actually pretty amazing. And what I learned about how to read and how to think from doing that was even more important. What I hope that parents will be open to is giving their youngsters as many different opportunities to try on who they are.
You know, so I took a year and a half off of college, and I suggest that to people. For me, I took the year and a half off to start this little nonprofit. So I didn't take a year and a half off straight out of high school. I spent a year at college. I thought I hated college. I thought I saw no purpose in it. You know, I thought it was dumb and useless. And when I left, I'm like, I'm done with college. I don't need it. I'll never go back. But then after a year and a half in the nonprofit, all of a sudden I saw the relevancy of all the courses that I could take. And now I've come back and all of a sudden, you know, I'm a 4.0 student when I was struggling to pass before. And so I always advocate if you're not 100% sure, some people are. My sister, since middle school, knew that she wanted to go into medical school, and that has never changed. And so for some people, they know automatically, it never changes. For those who don't, I don't think it's bad to just let it continue to develop until you know.
You have said something I feel really strongly about, too. take a gap year. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a student who just really wasn't either ready for college or wasn't committed to what it was requiring.
Yeah.
They were there because their parents insisted, or maybe they got some support and they thought, well, I better do it now.
Yeah.
And their heart isn't in it. And
Sure.
I think it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. Sometimes those students can be kind of perked up and you can get them going, but a lot of times they just aren't there yet.
Yeah.
Another thing parents need to be aware of is that you're going to want to keep track of all the different things your youngsters have been doing in their lives.
Oh, yeah.
And I got a brilliant idea about this from Catherine Martinez, who talked about a notebook she kept. Parents, pay attention to this one. It's a great tip.
I tell parents, when your kid starts their freshman year, start a notebook. And everything that they've done, all of their accolades, any organization, any volunteer work, anything they've done, make a copy of it and stick it in that notebook. And then when their senior year comes and you're applying for not only college, but also scholarships, you can go back to this trusty notebook and you know everything. And you're not having to pull your phone out and flip back three years and say, now, was it June 1st through 7th that I volunteered at PATH, or was it, you have it right there.
That's great advice.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's little things like that. And if you have multiple kids, it's so hard to keep up with all of the stuff that they do. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice for parents when you're, as soon as you realize I'm going to start, we're going to start looking at colleges and scholarships and that sort of thing. So probably like your freshman year of high school, start a notebook where you can put all of their accolades, their grades, a copy of everything. So you have it right there and
Well, as I said before, I think this is one of the best tips I can give you today.
Yeah.
What about you, Nathan? What do you think?
I wish I would have done it, and my mom did kind of keep track of it a little bit. I did want to add, because this is what was helpful for me, and I'm sure it's even more relevant now. If you weren't as fortunate and you're getting ready to launch your kid and you didn't write a notebook, have your kid go back in their Snapchat memories, their photos, because I guarantee most of the stuff that they went and did, they took some kind of picture or selfie there during that. That'll give you some good timestamps. I think that's I know that's something that we did, and I think that could be helpful.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
And finally, and this will be a topic of a future episode, is be strategic about the colleges you look into. There are lots of different kinds of colleges. You want to make sure that they have the programs that your students seem to be showing interest in.
Chino did that with his two daughters.
We went and visited the school twice, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was twice before the school started. So we kind of started finding out where the classes were. I think to them were, how am I going to find the class? And it was kind of challenging. I think that was their biggest challenge, getting from point B to point A for point B. So once they got everything set, I think they were a lot more comfortable.
Another thing to think about is every campus has a different kind of culture and
Oh, yeah.
climate and
Definitely.
different sizes, and youngsters need to kind of feel what a place looks like even before they start applying. Catherine Martinez went to great lengths to do this. Listen to what all she did.
I'm an A&M, Texas A&M graduate, so we've been to A&M. I have 5 nieces and nephews. 3 of them are currently in college. So we've been to LSU. We've been to Stephen F. Austin. We've gone to the University of Arkansas. So we've gone to a few schools and looked at different things. I like to point things out to him when we're on campuses. I know we were at SMU and we walked around and, I was pointing out different things that on the campus that, hey, this is interesting. This might appeal to you. When we went to University of Arkansas, when we left, I had him set a timer, and then when we got home, we looked at it so he would know exactly how long that was from our house. So he won't go there. I'm just kidding. But, we look at different things. And I have told him, just because the school you go to doesn't have the best football team, you can still watch the Aggies. You don't have to, you don't have to worry about that. You'll always have the Aggies to watch. But, so I think it's just trying to mold his mind into what you need to look for in a college, not necessarily the things that he's been thinking, but from an academic standpoint.
Well, I just have to add that you could also always have the Texas Longhorns.
Oh no. Yeah, my family are all Aggies, so they're gonna love that right there.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm a UT Austin person, so there you go. We got that.
Great.
Yeah, I think what's really useful in what Catherine Martinez has been talking about is that there are going to be things outside of the classroom that are going to be very much a part of the life of a college.
Sure. Yeah.
And families need to be aware of that. Do you want a big, huge campus where your student is just one of many, or do you want a much smaller sort of situation
Yeah.
where your youngster can get a little bit more personal attention?
And what's around the school? That's been a big thing for me. Is there places to eat? Are there places to hang out? Those kind of things. Are you next to a big town? If you want to be, or if you don't want to be, you should be aware of that. Once you know, okay, this is where I'm going, walk around, build a mental map of, okay, these are where my classes are. Do it in order of like, okay, if you have this class and then you go from there to here, walk that line. Okay, here I go, and do that, at the very least like a week before class starts, so that when it's go time, like you feel prepared. You've got enough to stress about on the first day of class. So get that knocked out. I like that.
And that's especially important if you go to a big research university where it's like a city.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that one. We asked a lot of these parents about what would be their very best sort of final general advice about how to get their youngsters launched into college. Bailey's husband, A.J. Allegretto, gave us some good things to think about.
You're doing it together. Just support one another. Be patient. Be willing to make adjustments as you need to make adjustments. And just keep putting one foot in front of the next. And maybe that sounds too simplistic, but to go too specific, things change so fast, and so just be flexible. That might be another one. Be flexible, but also keep your vision in front of you, and know that if you keep chipping away at it, you will come out on the other side of it. So,
Nathan, our last quote is from Scott Dillingham.
I think as we're talking about stories, somebody had told me a long, long, long time ago, before we had kids. They said, you're going to pray all the wrong things for your kid. You're going to pray that they're happy and they don't get hurt and they have friends. And none of that's going to help them grow. And so it's and that's true. But it's very difficult.
Yeah, I imagine it is difficult. It has to be a difficult experience from the parent side of things, raising a kid through all this and trying to launch them. And you never know how it's going to turn out. And you have to somehow accept that. I have this quote that I love, and it's, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Yeah, so I think it's great advice.
Finally, I guess the most important thing I would say is college is a very important platform from which they can launch their lives.
Yeah.
They will make friends there. They will make memories there. Some of them will find their spouses there. It's going to be a lot of work to get them there, and then it's going to be a lot of work to get them through there.
Yeah.
But honestly, it turns out to be one of the most important investments you can make in your youngsters' lives. And whether you had the chance to do it or not, I hope you'll give it a good try.
Yeah.
We want to answer your questions to help you figure out more about this interesting journey.
What a beautiful segue into the close. Hi, and my name is Nathan Witt. I'm the co-host and student perspective of the podcast. If you would like to ask Dr. Ross a question, the email is adrquestions@gmail.com. We're here to answer your questions, talk to you about college, how to get ready for it, how to survive it, and everything else that has to do with it. Thank you so much for listening. And that's it for episode 1.